Thank the Lord, no one will ever hear what I have just uttered about Brock Besser. He should just sign with Seattle, and that's it.
You should. I
Um,
agree.
Goodness. Well, welcome back to Keeping Up with the Seattle Kraken. We have jettisoned Miracle after just one episode. No, I'm kidding. Like I've mentioned, oh yeah, on our Storm show we just did. I'm sorry, this is my third show in a row. Um, Schedules are tough. Things are tough. I mean, we were gonna hope to do a show yesterday, but I was out and about on the move as I went from the press conference um, to the rough and tumble watch party for the PWHL expansion draft. Which again, any of my hopes, and I feel like I said this on the last show, right? Where it's like one organization's going one way, the other is going the other.
Yep.
That was only kind of like emphasized further yesterday. But yeah, I mean, I was there. You can see this with this poorly taken picture of Lane Lambert from down. I mean, it was cool to be in the players' lounge. Um, oh yeah, and this other awkward photo they make where they make him stand with the jersey. Um, yeah, it was we'll talk about it. Right? We'll look at individual things that were said. Obviously, general manager Jason Bottrell was there. And was there to introduce Lane. I turned to Darren with Sound of Hockey right before he comes in, and I go, over or under, did he shave the beard he's got? And Darren goes, what if he's got the Dave Hackstall goatee? Do you remember the Dave Hackstall goatee?
Vaguely.
Yeah. He goes, what if he comes in with that? I go, then I will be seriously concerned.
Yep.
Because that was a weird time. I did
I
not
only
like
say vaguely because I try to put a lot of the Hackstall era of coaching out of my brain so that I never have to think about it
it.
again.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess before we go into the individual things, because there's not that much going on. Um, since we did our last episode, right? It really was the presser. I think that was the one thing that we're looking forwards to. I
Hmm.
mean, there's things you can look at rumor wise, right? Like the fact that Jason Robertson's name apparently is uh floating around in trade talks or talks generally.
Yep.
Um, that's kind of it. I mean, in terms of like hockey news in Seattle, it's largely the fact that the PWHL is doing.
Today, hold on one second. I know that I retweeted it. Um, Elliot Friedman
Mm,
said he called Seattle low key about them being a team to do something and said that they are eager to take a step this year. Might go after an offer sheet as they have cap flexibility, which
cool.
um
Okay.
they have. Hold on, I'm pulling up Puckpedia. My words aren't wording anymore.
Arcadia. I mean, well,
They
while you
have
do that,
19,950, no, 19,953,454 in cap space
yep.
as of right now, and that's with all of the extensions that they've signed so far.
Yes. Okay. I was gonna be like 19,000. I'm like, wow, we really fucked ourselves really quickly.
Oh, 19
Um,
million.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, you still have to remember they'll not you specifically, but they'll have to ideally, excuse me, extend Capo Caco. They'll
Hmm.
have to handle the deals for, excuse me, Ty Cartier and Riker Evans. And then there's, as you mentioned last show, I think there's some depth guys that they'll need to handle throughout, the organization.
Yeah,
Obviously,
there's,
there's the veterans with that'll be at Coachella Valley, right?
yep. Kel Fleury,
That's right.
Gustav Olsen, um, the one whose last name starts with an L that I never say because I always think I'm gonna butcher it.
What's the first
L
name?
Max. Max
Oh,
Max.
Lejoie,
Yeah.
the D, the defenseman.
Yep.
Yeah, Lejoie.
Yep.
Yep.
And then Mikey Asiwan if they decide to bring him back.
Oh, that's right. I don't
Um,
see why they wouldn't.
I know. And then as far as goaltending goes in Coachella Valley specifically, they have Stezka that's a
Yep.
UFA, but they also have three other goaltenders kind of ready to start making their rounds in Coachella, I feel like. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think it's interesting because on one hand, I'm sure you want an emergency third to be a veteran,
hmm.
but I mean, yeah, with the group of like overseas goalies you've got, I mean, well, and you've also got some um Jack LaFontaine had a great year in Kansas City with the Mavericks.
Yep, yep.
So I don't know. And Victor Osman also, yeah, who got the weird remember over the break, over the Four Nations break, who was hanging out on the NHL roster
Yeah,
for just the paper transaction.
yep. And
So
everybody
yeah,
was
that is
freaking out about that.
yep. I was downtown eating a fucking bacon, egg, and cheese. And I was like, why are you guys you remember this? We were in a group chat and I was like, I promise you it's nothing more than a paper
Yeah.
transaction. No one listens to me. That's fair. I do all these podcasts, but no one. Yeah, let's talk about this. I don't know. Well, I kind of do because we text about it, but I am curious, of course, to hear your thoughts. And it's unfairness maybe just to do this after his first presser because, obviously how someone speaks in the media doesn't directly relate to their coaching ability, right? There are some
Absolutely.
great coaches who just aren't great talking to the media or maybe aren't as thrilled to do so, right? There are coaches who maybe are great at talking to the media, but are terrible at their job, the main job. So I just wasn't super like I don't know. I didn't leave the building. I didn't leave the players' lounge at Kraken Community Iceplex thinking like, hey, like they got their guy. Like they are certifiably going to take the next step. Um, it is interesting. I mean, it's kind of the same stuff that we've seen in the press releases that they send us, right?
Hmm.
Where they believe in his journey and the journey he's taken. Um, his ability, to grow. Yeah, since he was with the Islanders, stuff like that. Um, they like that he's been a part of a lot of the success. It's funny seeing the graph. It's no fault of the graphics people, right? But seeing like Stanley Cup champion, part of 21 playoff series, President's Cup trophy winner. I'm like, that's that's interesting. You
Yeah.
know, you get what I'm saying? So it's like it's a lot of the stuff there's obviously more, and we'll look into that. But I guess what were your initial where your as my voice cracks? Wow. What were your initial thoughts just from seeing this press conference and what was said in it?
Um, Initially I felt I have been a little bit doom and gloom about a lot of the changes that have happened this off season, which if you've listened to any of the previous episodes, you'll know that. Or if you talk to me at any point ever about the Kraken, you'll probably know that. But I've it felt uninspiring, which I feel like just kind of is the current uh like narrative that I'm getting from them is just not super inspiring as of right now. Obviously, there's room to, make me eat my words and change my mind, but I think that the biggest thing that stood out to me was that he has worked with Chandler Stevenson and Grubauer. Those are the only two that I'm going to mention by name. That he's worked. Berkey is the other one,
Oh,
Burkowski, but
also
that
Jordan
he's.
Eberle.
Oh yeah, forgot about him. Um, but that he's worked with them in the past. I think that
Yeah.
that's, important, and it's always helpful to have kind of a connection coming into a new team. I guess especially with Everly being captain, that's I'm sure going to be a good thing for them. Um, Aside from that, just like the way that he talked about, like obviously his teams have some defensive success, and I know that that's something that he touched on yesterday. That's really the only hope that I'm holding out, though, is the defensive success, and hopefully, he can whip the defensive core into shape.
Eh, Yeah. I mean, that was like he was asked about that, just like asked about um the success that teams have had, and obviously most recently with Toronto. Um, Defensively, it was like that was a thing too. Like I mentioned, maybe not being super inspired, not coming away with any wow takeaways because
Hmm.
it wasn't super quotable. There was nothing that stood out. It was maybe more conservative. I talked to a few people the day of to just kind of like get their thoughts on it. Um, and it just seems like I think what folks within the Kraken organization are happy about is it seems like there'll be more structure. Like, and it's not necessarily a dig at the previous coaches and Dave Haxtell or Dan Bilesma. It just I think this what's really going to be paramount with this group and this year is the structure, is the details. and paying attention to that because and it's also kind of a bailout for if they don't do anything super big or plug all of the holes they seem to have in free agency, right? Is if you play a team game and are structured and all that, it can overcome not having superstars.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, so it seems like structure and defensive ability are going to be two big things, and that does help, cover up, I guess, I'm going to use the word compensate, for not having more star power, right? Not
Yep.
having guys who will go and win you games with a shift or essentially,
Hmm.
right? So um that's kind of my thoughts and like initially coming away and overarching thoughts wise, right?
Yep.
Uh so it was interesting. Because yeah, nothing that Botterill or Lambert said was too like, whoa, we're gonna go and do anything outlandish. I think his press conference in a way epitomized what they want to do, and that's be structured, take care of the puck defense. He mentioned like I did think that was interesting. I guess I'll eat my words a little bit that they were like, hey, we want to take care of we want to improve defensively on our defensive zone. How many times, Jayd, were we there, or did I text you about a breakdown in their own zone where they either turned the puck over somehow or just, failed to get it clear and it would resulted in
Hmm.
their goalie getting fucked over, whoever it was. And I'm like, I don't know how this is happening. Like, obviously, on top of their defensive issues generally, like, feels like playing in your own end should be something that you take care of immediately, and that did
Yep.
not happen, right? So, that did stand out to me, but
Hmm.
there's that. Trying to see, yeah, it's funny just seeing them talk about his accomplishments because I'm like, sure, part of these things is certainly unique. Um, I guess if you want to look at it this way, it was interesting. He said Lane Lambert said when I came in here, I knew within about the first 3 minutes that I had conversations that I wanted to be here. So that's nice. I mean, depending on what he's being paid, I would hope he wants to be here, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they said, hey, there are factors that go into that, right? Um, but yeah, I certainly hope you would want to be here,
Hmm.
right? Perfect. There we go. I can handle that. Um, that I mean, but also like, let me say this because I was thinking about this while you were talking, right? Um, I usually like to think I'm the positive guy in a lot of the shows we do. But just as you've mentioned, like trend wise and decision wise, it doesn't feel like the Kraken have been making the best decisions for a while. In different, usually team related regards. There are some things they do off the ice that pretty solid, right? But obviously, we're not just looking at one side of it, the other. There are outlets that look at just the game, right?
Hmm.
There are folks who look at just the off ice stuff. We look at kind of all of it. Um, so anyway, I just wanted to say it's like I know there are fans who comment on our things like, oh, you're too soft on them, right? Or you're too hard on them. I'm sorry, I am kind of both. Um, but I think generally it's especially with this hire, prove me
Hmm.
fucking wrong,
Yep.
right? Like our
I would,
job is to talk about it.
yeah, and I would love for at the end of the season, halfway through the season, a quarter of a way through the season, something to be like, oh, you know what? Maybe everything that I said was wrong. I underestimated his abilities. I don't think that that's really going to be the case, but I would love to be able to say that. So,
Yeah. I mean, again, it's proved me wrong. I'm not saying for like I never do that. You'll notice, right? I never say,
mhm.
"Hey, this is for sure a thing," and I'll never change my stance.
Yep.
Right? I like to always say, "I'm interested to watch. I'm intrigued to watch. We'll
Hmm.
see." Because I've been proven wrong. We've seen sports stories where athletes or coaches finally reach the mountaintop, right? If you gave up on a guy immediately, Paul Maurice wouldn't be coaching where he is right now, right?
Yeah.
Like there are examples all over of guys who, you hear stories all the time. He finally reached it. He finally did this, so on and so forth. So like, hey, I'm not ever gonna count someone out totally and entirely. Um, What was it? Oh, that's a funny quote. I'm gonna use a Star Wars quote. What? Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I don't deal in absolutes. This shit can change. Like is that the quote? Yep. I got my Star Wars right. Yay. I hate to deal in like this is for sure because
Hmm.
there's always more sides to something. So I wanted to get that out of the way before we look kind of into other things because I know again there are folks who have been on us about being too soft on the team or rather being too positive, so on and so forth. Um, so I know that it does go kind of both ways. Because normally I like to think I am positive, right?
Yep.
But also, um, at least when things are shown to me, when I see a pattern of something, when I see a trend, I will point that out. Um, so you know. Um, let's see here. Yeah, I talked about the facilities. That's great. I mean, it is nice to know that we're not like, I don't know what teams in the NHL you'd compare it to, but it's not like you're playing in a shitty barn, right? Where it's like,
Hmm.
oh, you come to the rink and it's like the stalls are falling apart.
Yeah.
It is nice to know that you are considered at the top um, in that regard of the league. He talked about standing behind the visitors bench and watching the passion and the volume of the crowd. So that's nice.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, like again, so much of this, and again, maybe that is why Jade, like I left it feeling somewhat uninspired because it like was very cookie cutter, not cookie
Yeah.
cutter, but it was very bland. It was like, yeah, like so much of this is that I'm looking through the transcript is, yeah, we're gonna build the process and
Yep.
the results will take like it is all very much like do the little things like the sports terminology I use is you take your lunch pail and your hard hat, and you show up and you do your
So there's a one single fly in my room and it just was hovering in front of me.
that it wanted to talk to it has thoughts on Lane Lambert. Um, it's like come and do the hard work kind of thing. Obviously, and again, whether that is by definition or like by like you're doing it purposefully or it's because of the lack of talent you might have,
Hmm.
that can win you games. So like I get like making it known, hey, it's gonna be the process and we're gonna do things the right way.
Hmm.
So, that's largely I feel like what this presser was.
It's I think in the last episode that we did with Miracle, I used the term bread and butter, and that's really what this felt like again. And obviously I wasn't there, so the vibe sitting in my room watching it on my TV versus being there in person watching it is going to be different, but it just felt very, here's the basics, and the team's going to get back to the basics, which how many times can they get back to the basics when they're going into their fifth year? It just seems
For sure.
so, yeah.
I think the
I'm trying not to harp on it too much, but
No, for sure. I think the what was interesting, and not to throw right under the bus, but what Miracle mentioned was like kind of questioning like talk about identity and philosophy, right? And
hmm.
you mentioned it was like, well, again, we're 5 years into it and they still don't seem to have it. I'm like, that's true though. I think both sides are fair, like Miracle questioning it, um, and you being like, hey, well, they are also like trying to they haven't really done that, right?
Yeah. I'm
So
looking through the our chat right now. Oh, Miracle said building our culture and identity with an emoji. It's our fifth season. I don't know, man. And I said identity for sure needs to be built because they haven't had a consistent identity, but the culture is already there, I think. Maybe not built, but refined. So,
yeah, I think
and
we're
that
fine.
was,
Yeah,
yeah.
in regard to culture, because I mean, you're not making wholesale changes,
Hmm.
right? They're not tearing this thing down as much as some folks want to, and I maybe won't totally disagree with that. Um, sorry, I'm somewhat multitasking. Um, I think just the reality of the situation is that they will not totally flip things, right? That's
Yeah.
not going to happen. Um, even though there are reports from the Athletic that Seattle is one of the teams that wants to shake things up, right? Is that what it was?
I think so, yeah. This is, I think it was, oh, what's that guy's name that does all the elite prospect stuff? Stephen Ellis. He calls this time of year around the combine the silly season because it's just all these different rumors floating around and people just kind of talking and coming up with the most bizarre things. And that's kind of how it feels right now, reading all these reports from insiders that are like, Seattle's going to shake things up. And then you
Oh,
scroll five more tweets up and it's like, Seattle's not going to do anything. And then you scroll 10 more tweets up and it's like, Seattle's going to go for Mitch Marner or something like that. So,
they're really keeping us on our toes. Yeah.
yeah,
What will Seattle do? I don't think anybody seems to know, apparently, in
yeah.
concrete terms. Yeah, okay, that's fair. I that was another thing. I was like, do we spend how much time do we spend talking about that report? Because I'm like, if there's conflicting things, how much do I trust it? And also, given the ownership group, hey, I will say I've been surprised before. I was surprised they fired Dan
Hmm.
and Lowry and Briere, but it just they this is an organization that does not really one admit mistakes, but two
Yep.
take a lot of big risks. Right? So like I'm kind of always skeptical whenever any sort of like risk thing is mentioned with them.
Hmm.
So you know what I mean? Um, I will say the one different thing. See, you seem to have something, so I will come back to it. One piece of different news because it feels like I've just been hammering home the process thing is they did confirm Jess Campbell's coming back. I mean, we knew that
Hmm.
from the earlier presser, right, when they introduced Bottrell, um, and confirmed that she's going to be an assistant because there were folks who were like, "Oh, we're in the weird men." Um, I just pissed somebody off right there. Uh, oh yeah, because they were like, "Oh," and then they didn't confirm. Oh yeah, we're close to this and that. They were just like, "We're evaluating," and I'm like,
Hmm.
"Hey." Which sure, I guess is fair, but it's like again, there's the skepticism. So that's what we know with that. Lambert said that she's had some good conversations with Jess. She'll be back. We're going through the process of she's been integral in the development of some of our young players. And when you look at like obviously Shane Wright's the poster child for that, right? Like you look at some of yeah, and I had seen it. I don't know if you ever did, but seeing her working with Maddie ahead of morning skates with his edge work,
Yep.
that's not nothing, right? So I do think that's important. So yeah, I mean, obviously she's got a role to play here.
Hmm.
We're in a position right now to find the best people to add to the staff and put them in a position to have success. So you seem to have something before I keep going.
I was gonna correct myself. It's Cam Robinson, not Stephen Ellis, because I just know
I
that somebody would be in the comments like, actually, it's this person.
um You got it wrong.
Yeah. So Cam Robinson, he does do work for Elite Prospects, but he calls this the silly season. There's a whole article where he was like, here's all the crazy things you hear at the combine. The silly season is in full swing. And that's all that I can think of with every single new NHL trade rumor tweet and listening to 32 Thoughts and seeing Daily Face Off and everything. This is kind of the point in the off season where it's like you can't really believe anything that's being said.
Yeah, it's we need something. We've got to grasp something, and I feel like people do know that. Um, Especially fan base wise, if you're going to be someone who's going to manipulate a fan base is thinking, or like, hey, I know they want something. This fan base is looking for it. It's the
Hmm.
perfect time to do that because if you're eliminated and you don't necessarily have stake in the Stanley Cup final right now, you need something, right?
Yep.
You know how many like mutuals I had that reacted to the Jason Robertson is out there talks? It's like, hey, I love it too, but I'll
Yeah.
believe it when there's like I hear from someone that I know on it, or like it seems that like there is some traction legitimately being generated, right?
Hmm.
Until then, I'm not getting hurt. I know when to hurt myself. That sounds terrible. I guess one of the interesting quotes, we go back to the younger players thing, was Lambert was kind of asked about, the yeah, I guess integration is a word you could use. Integration of some of the younger players into the lineup, right? And the importance of, bringing up the young players, the prospects, giving them reps because they are the future, while also trying to win now,
Yep.
right? And Lambert kind of gave an interesting response. He said the younger players is one of the things that really intrigued him when he sat down and talked about the team. Said they've got a balanced team, youth and veterans. They create balance. There's no question about it. I think young players used in the right moments at the right times can help us win. So I largely believed in Dan, but one of the things I didn't agree with was when he would put Shane on the fourth line. I didn't say that, Jayd. You guys said that, right?
Uh-huh.
You remember that. Um, I didn't agree with that. I don't think, especially the season that he had after he was healthy scratched, because I think early in the season the healthy scratch wasn't the worst thing. Like I think we talked about it on the show then. Like give him some time to see the game from above, and it's his full first NHL season. It wouldn't hurt him. Didn't think that was blasphemous. But then
Hmm.
later in the year, when you're counted out and you've got a guy who's performing better than several of your forwards, I don't think that should have, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so that was I Shane again, who is Maddie's kind of been pushed as like the future guy, right? In a lot of ways.
Hmm.
To me, and we've said this, it's always been Shane to me. So I don't know. Does him talking about that like, you know, the emphasis to use them in the right moments, that sort of thing, does that give you hope that maybe we'll see some of the younger players get more shine? Because I know that's something, anything in any comments, right? Any of the players are struggling, they're like, call up this guy, let him
Hmm.
play. I mean, I've even like I we still haven't unfortunately seen Ryan Winterton's first NHL goal, right? I'm I realize that it's not always going to work with prospects. That's part of it. You and I have talked off the record about prospects, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. What does that like the younger player thing make you think about? Does it give you hope that they'll maybe have a little bit less of a leash with some of these guys? Because it didn't seem like, hey, we're gonna play the older guys, excuse me, and they'll make mistakes, but some of the younger guys, it's like maybe they'd have a harsher reality as opposed to some of the other guys who are making mistakes.
I mean, I would hope that they give some of the younger guys a chance, obviously, but I also then that's kind of where it gets hard because, like, yeah, I would love for them to give some of the younger guys a chance when the more like older veteran guys are having a hard time. But then what you bench, you healthy scratch one of the older veterans who's making, I'll go with 5 million a year because that's kind of the like an average. So then you healthy scratch a guy making $5 million a year, then you're gonna have people complaining that this rookie isn't performing the way that you expect because he's never played in the NHL before. He has limited games. And then I'm sure there would also be people that are like, why is this $5 million player sitting in the press box? Just trade him. So it's kind of a rock and a hard place. I love watching the younger guys develop. That's one of my favorite parts of the game. But I also there has to be like a um meeting point with the two. Like you have to be able to really tell when or like even no, not meeting point. Like a I don't know, even ground kind of. There needs to be like
Like a
a
balance.
yeah, level. Like I said, words are really hard for me today. It's been a long day. So,
Hmm.
um but yeah, there needs to be a balance in having young guys come up and play and or even just, Shane Wright, Matty Benier, some of the younger guys already on the team
Hmm.
playing in place of um some of the older guys.
I think that's fair. Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, we'll see it inevitably, right?
Hmm.
It feels like throughout the course of this organization's tenure. It's not just with Lane Lambert. Like that's always going to be a thing.
Yep.
Um, and it is interesting. I think especially, and I just thought about this with whatever the hell they're going to do with Berkeley Catton, right? Like there will
I
be
think about
folks who
that.
are upset either way.
Yeah, I think about that at least once a day.
You gotta get you a hobby friend. No, I'm
I know.
Um, yeah, no. So it is certainly like die, live by it, die by it. I mean, so it'll be interesting. Again, it goes back to some like a theme of this organization, not
Hmm.
organization. This I would say like regime, but they also don't have. They have one head coach and seemingly one assistant coach. Bob Woods is still there, but no one said his name yet. And like asking anything. So I mean, he's still technically there, I believe. Um, isn't that funny? It's
Hmm.
like we've talked about Jess, we have Lane, uh, Lowry and Briere have been fired, and then Bob Woods is just in the corner, like, hello, I exist still.
Yeah, just
Um,
hanging out.
it's kind of funny. Uh, so um, yeah, that it does make me wonder about that. I'm like, hey, what are you gonna do with Berkeley?
Hmm.
So, um, I mean, it is exciting to see that he was asked a few of the first questions he was asked was about kind of the younger players and realizing when to give them runway and the veteran presence that they have because so often, right, we heard last year with Dan with the leadership group, right, and even guys who didn't wear the A.
Hmm.
One day Jared McCanny will wear an A, but we'll see. um you know yeah, very much he did. Oh, um yeah, Botterill kind of, I do remember this in the moment. Botterill kind of had an interesting follow-up after like essentially the two back-to-back questions about the youth. And Botterill was like, well, it's not just going to be on Lane. It's like
Hmm.
they have Coachella Valley and the staff there and head coach Derek Laxdal. Like, sure. And, the player development staff led by Jeff Tambellini. I'm like, yes, we realize that. Obviously, Lane Lambert's not going down to Coachella Valley in Kansas City and being like,
Yeah.
you're ECHL and AHL, like you do this and you do that. I understand that, but it is also ultimately his decision where they play and such, right?
Hmm.
Um, oh God, I have to not be mean because there's a question in there that like two questions in here that I think are silly, and I have no like, there's no purpose in going over them. Um, ooh, okay. This is interesting. Was asked kind of about the pressure because I referenced this too, and I felt crazy because no one else would, and I was like, did I just imagine this? But you've heard me reference the Ron Francis how he mentioned like this 4 to 5 year plan, right?
Yep.
That was brought up, and he was asked kind of, obviously it's his first season, but do you feel the pressure to be a runner right away? No, no. And perform to a standard as expected to be, essentially making a playoff run and this team being in the playoffs. Um, and so before I read Lane's response, I did talk to a few folks with the organization after the presser. I was actively trying to leave. I didn't stay around, but I was trying to leave. But I talked to folks because it's part of my job to kind of get an understanding. Um, they want to win. They want to win this year. They are
Hmm.
like they won't say it. They're expecting results. So that was interesting, but they
Yeah.
also like they can't they realize they can't like fire him after this year. They realize they can't do the unless something
Hmm.
crazy happens, unless it turns out he's a fucking freak, you know, because unfortunately that is a real thing in hockey.
Yeah.
Um they realize that, but they also are expecting results. And I mean, I feel like we have seen the ownership group, they want to win. They realize I won't say what they compared them to, but they don't want to be a laughing stock. They really don't. They're spending a lot of money. So, um, Lane said, I don't feel the pressure of that. I have an expectation on myself, of my role, my job, my abilities. I alluded to it a little bit earlier. You start day one, it's a process, it's a journey. If you do the right things through that journey and do the right things every day, you hear why I keep saying process and they're going to
Hmm.
do things the right way. Then the results will take care of themselves. You can't get too far ahead of yourself, which isn't a bad approach,
Yeah.
right? It just wasn't. I don't need a guy to be rah rah, right? It would make our content more interesting, right?
Hmm.
Um, but you know, It's there's nothing too crazy. He did. Thank you for mentioning some of the players that he has experience with because he was asked kind of, any conversations with players he's had. You
Hmm.
know, yeah, like he mentioned Jordan, Stevie, Andre, Phil by name. So, oh, I did tweet this quote because I thought it was interesting, and someone, I think Miracle was like, I don't know if this is the greatest thing. I think it was more like this makes sense, but I don't know if it's worked before. I'm pretty straightforward. I'm fair, but I'm demanding, and they know exactly what they're going to get there. I don't think
Oh,
that's a bad thing,
yeah.
but it's somewhat interesting, right? You seem to have thoughts on that? Do you have thoughts on that?
I don't have any. My thoughts are probably the same as your thoughts, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not crazy. I just wonder, like, you talk about balance, right? I'm like, okay, if you're fair but demanding, what does that look like? Like, are
Hmm.
you well, and the Kraken just had a coach like that, right? Stevie mentioned, hey, like having the human side of it, and you remember I asked Kako, I was like, hey, do you agree with that? Especially considering the situation that Capo Kako is in New York. So, you know, we had that. So this is not going to be anything new. I just wonder, is that it's tough because you want a coach that players are going to feel, safe around, trust, all that sort of stuff, want to go to war for. Will
Hmm.
that, will you be able to balance the human side of it and get the most out of them, right? Because there are coaches who can get the most out of more, out of less. Like
Yep.
again, unfortunately, I don't feel super great about what they're going to get in free agency. But so yeah, is it going to be? Are you going to get able to get the most out of the current players that you're largely going to have the same group, right?
Hmm.
Again, unless the reports are true that they're going to shake things up, which right. Um,
At this point, I would love for some crazy, insane shake-up trade to happen. Just to have something happen.
I want to feel something. Jayd says. Um,
Exactly.
he did say he talked to some other guys though that he hadn't coached, and that the theme is that everybody's excited. Well, I sure hope so. Um, that quote doesn't really matter to me. Um, trying to go through the transcript here and really see what matters, right? I guess it was so interesting because we talked about, I feel like on the last show, like the previous experiencing having a year and a half. Darren with Sound of Hockey asked, hey, basically, what have you learned since you were a head coach previously? Like what's different for you? Um, a lot of I do this a little bit differently, do that a little bit differently, I do this or that the same. Our defensive structure, the identity that we had, the identity that we played with, I'm proud of that. Again, it's all the same points were hammered throughout the course of the day. There's
Hmm.
little things that I will look at, look back at, look into changing, but at the end of the day, I'm proud of what happened in New York. Ooh, boy. It's gonna be boring hockey, folks. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It is not gonna be super intriguing. There will be players who will be fun. Like again, I'm excited to watch Shane, right?
Hmm.
But they are going to control the puck. That was a thing too. He was like, if we're gonna play defense, part of it is controlling the puck. And I'm like, so they're gonna control the puck, they're gonna play good defense, and they're gonna play boring hockey.
Yep.
And you're gonna get to the playoffs that way, and you're gonna like it. That's
Apparently.
kind of how it's gonna be. Um, yeah, nothing too. Oh boy, sorry. Looking at a certain question that Jayd will understand what I'm looking at.
Mhm.
Um, this is the question itself was fair though, because with the other, not the other, I hate to put it that way, but with Seattle's newest professional team and professional hockey team, with the PWHL Seattle franchise coming here and playing in the same building, practicing in the same facility, the question was essentially asked, oh, Jesus, what do you think the Kraken and PWHL Seattle can learn from each other this year and for seasons to come? And the person asking this question did reference, hey, Lane Lambert was in a market where the Toronto Maple Leafs were there. You might know a thing or two about them, Jayd. I don't know if you ever heard about them.
Hmm.
And then the Toronto Scepters were there the last few years. He said, I was fortunate to be in Toronto and share that. Uh, like you had mentioned, we had a lot of communication with the coaching staff and with the players there. That's cool. I didn't know that. I think we can learn from each other on a daily basis, whether it be different tactics or things like that. This It's funny to hear this after the expansion draft and look back at it. Sorry, after the expansion, because I did hear it. I just was
Hmm.
because one of these teams is probably, I'd be really shocked if they didn't, going to score a lot of goals, right? And while PWHL Seattle has Corrine Schroeder, who is the league's shutout leader, they probably won't need her to do that. Is continue those shutouts because of how many goals they're going to score. And then you look at the Kraken; they're going to defense you to death. They're going to dull you to death with a meat grinder. It is fascinating how different they will be,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And so to see whether it be different tactics or thing like that in terms of learning, it's fascinating. Um, so yeah, I mean, again, that's not the craziest thing to see. Shared that, oh yeah, general manager Megan Turner reached out. Um, Botterill said this, yeah, that general manager Megan Turner had reached out and had conversations with Jason and with Ron Francis and just different ways of setting up a team to start off with. So that's cool. Oh yeah, talked about, I guess they also talked about the involvement with youth hockey in the area. So that's cool. Um, I'll look at that one. So yeah, just also looking into some of these things. Unfortunately, folks, I feel bad because I'm repeating myself a lot. But again, I mean, Jade heard it. Like it
Hmm.
was largely the same things that were reiterated, which isn't bad. I mean, if like having straightforward messaging is great, and so it's not like confusing to you or there's too much on their plate, but it's like there wasn't too much super wise, I guess, to break down in terms of what took place on this
Yeah.
for this press conference. So, it was all largely the same message, um, you know, in that sort of regard. Um, it was interesting though. I guess he was asked, Lane Lambert was asked about, and Mark Muschietti from the Associated Press. I know Mark works does stuff with the Seattle Pacific. Our photographer Rio is at Seattle Pacific, so he knows Mark. Um, he was Mark kind of cracked him a little bit. He was like last year in a lot of major stats, the Kraken were in the lower half, lower third, lower quarter of the league in face-off shots, PK, power play. It was like, hey, this team sucked ass last year. How are you going to make that better? Uh, it wasn't Mark's point, but I still thought it was funny. I was like, damn, like he's reading off the laundry list of things that this team was ass in. And I know because face-offs, shots, PK, power play were all things I had to keep track of with our stats graphic.
Hmm.
Um, you know, the quote is good. He says everything has to be addressed, right? You can't build Rome in a day. Going back to the process part here, Jayd. Um, from a day one, you start with the process. You start demanding. You start instilling your systems, your structure, your detail. You see why again I'm repeating things. They were
Yeah.
repeated. Um, he goes, but definitely special teams. Our special teams have to be better. Why is Bob Wood still here then? Defensively, we'll be better in our defensive zone. Was still here. I know we will be. So from that standpoint, that would probably be the focus. Yeah. So it was special teams and defense, the two
Hmm.
things that hurt them last year for a large have really hurt them for the large part of the last 2 years. And I mean, if you want to talk about special teams, that's hurt them basically all their existence,
Yeah.
right? So, see if there's anything else that's really that important. Uh, nope. That's kind of it. Everything else was just kind of the same repeating stuff. Again, sorry, folks. I really am. I'm sorry for repeating it and beating it to death. And you've heard me talk a lot. I'm sure there are a lot of you who are here just for Jade. Um, but it was largely the same shit that was repeated. So I
Yep.
I do think though, if the hopeful part of me comes out, that is a good thing. I talked about with straightforward messaging. It's like you're not deviating from shit. You're not trying to do too much.
Hmm.
And maybe that's something he learned right from the last time he was in New York is like realizing, hey, you don't want to do a bunch of different things. Like there are things, ooh, nice. Sorry, great tag. Cal Raleigh is Jesus. I wish the Kraken had their version of Cal Raleigh. No, they do. It's Joey Decord. God damn it. they play somewhat. No, I'd say there's. I think catchers or goalies are similar,
I
uh,
agree.
right?
Not 100% the same, but pretty similar.
No, I do wish catchers could like customize their gear more like goalies can.
Yeah.
But um, so yeah, I do think that's what sticks out to me the most after going back over the transcript is like we're gonna do things this way. They're going to be structured. We're gonna pay attention to details. Um, and it's just gonna play like fundamental hockey is what I'm
Hmm.
hearing, right? And depending on what happens in free agency, you will need better years from I'm waving too. I want to feel included.
Haley. She just got home. I'll tell her you waved.
Uh, you'll need. I think even before they hire Lambert, right? If they had just gone with Bilesma for a second year, you
Hmm.
need like better years from guys,
Yeah.
right? Is there anything in any of that from me looking back at the transcript that maybe you had thoughts on or you want to look at? Because a lot of this is me yapping. And I try to not. I feel bad. I look down at Jade on my screen. I'm like, let me not just eat up her time and just me talk for the hour.
I have nothing else super specific aside from this is going to be a probably really boring year of hockey. Although there's a chance that that's what this team needs is to get back to basics. I fucking hate saying that. They're already a very basic team. There's not much more basic you can get, but like I maybe they do just need 1 year of rehashing the basics. Here's how to play defensive hockey. You're a defenseman, here's how you defend. Like that's kind of how it feels like it's going to be. Um, which maybe that's the foundation of starting something better. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think until they like legitimately acquire some more help
Hmm.
offensively, I think that's how you do it, right? And I think that's a build. You want to talk about process and doing things the right way. The timeline I was sort of given was 3 years for Lane Lambert. I don't think we know the contract length.
I don't
So
think we do either. I know Sound of Hockey is doing a mailbag podcast in the
ah,
next couple of days, and that was one of the first questions when I clicked on the replies because I always like to know what other people want to know. I'm
for sure.
nosy. So I clicked on the replies, and that was one of the tweets was or one of the responses was asking if they know the Lane Lambert contract, but I haven't seen anything.
Yeah,
I wonder if
to be clear, the 3 years thing isn't a contract date. It's the like sort of thing I was told is like that was in the same sentence I was talking to someone with where they were like they can't do this one after a year thing, right? It was the
Mhm.
3 years was kind of like the timeline the person I was speaking to, I think was the ideal length to figure things out. So I mean that's also going to be interesting for people to hear though, because they're like, why didn't Dan get 3 years?
Yep.
Right. So um it'll be interesting in that regard, just to see him because it feels like they're gonna have to let him build this, right? They
Hmm.
thought they had a guy in Bilesma. I'll keep referencing that because I heard it, right? When we were in that press conference. Oh well, I showed up late to that press conference. I had to sit in the back. I hated it. Uh they talked about, hey, we got a coach who's gonna bring up our young players.
Hmm.
Not a lot of bringing up he could do in 1 year, my friend. I don't know.
Yeah.
That seems so anyway, my point, oh yeah, my point was like maybe yeah, after a year or two you do bring in a few stars, ideally. And so you'll maybe by in 2 years and 3 years, they will be able to maybe play a little less boring hockey. But I think
Hmm.
right now, again, with the vast majority of what you got, you kind of have to do that. And unless you're like rookies in Coachella Valley really shoot up and make that plan change, right? Hey, maybe Berkeley Catton sticks out enough. He builds enough muscle in the off season. He's a
Hmm.
genetic freak where he's able to handle the NHL level, and they're okay with him learning on the fly, and
Yeah.
his ability sticks out enough to keep him, right? I think that's the absolute wonderful miracle case for Berkeley Catton this year.
Hmm.
I don't think it's happening, but life's crazy, right?
Stranger things have happened.
Yes.
Okay, come on.
So Maverick, maybe you'll need to play, left wing. Um, you
You could talk
know,
about it.
they have a few guys. Maybe Ryan Winterton takes a leap in the offseason and he forces you to, change some plans. So again, things are happening, but again, the core of this team currently is in place. Like
Mhm.
this is how it's gonna be for most of it. So, that's just how it's gonna have to play out. Oops, excuse me. Goodness gracious. Um, I guess I do want to touch on it quickly. With the Robertson thing. I really hope Jason Botterill is on the phone with whoever any of these Texas Dallas area codes
Mhm.
because I mean, I'm not saying they're directly linked, but of course you hear there the few reports about them wanting to potentially shake things up. Trading for a guy like that does that,
Mhm.
right? Because unfortunately, for some folks, because I know trades are hard, right? Anytime we post speculation or confirm a trade, people will be like, it's the meme where it's like only acquire, no trade.
Yep.
Um, I get that, friends. I hear you. I really do. I respect that. Um, you will lose someone you like if they're trading for Jason Robertson.
Yeah.
It would be a Dallas Mavericks ass trade if they didn't. And hey, they're in the same city, those teams, so maybe they take after each other, but you'll lose someone you like. Like,
Mhm.
um, we're referencing Sound of Hockey, and I'll reference Emerald City Hockey. Like, these are you talk about like seeing what people like. These are also folks who are doing great work. I think
Mhm.
we both enjoy being around Dylan and RJ with Emerald City Hockey and Darren. We usually see Darren. There are other folks, but Darren is who we usually see with Sound of Hockey. So I'll reference them because I respect them, and obviously they've been on the channel before, right? Um, but oh yeah, RJ was doing one of his armchair GMs, which are those are great. If you want to, you know, if you need my opinion, a colleague essentially of RJ because we've seen each other at on the Kraken press bridge. He actually helped me with protocols on the press bridge, which is funny because I didn't realize it was also his first year doing that too. I had no idea. Um, so we've got a great relationship. If you need someone to, boost that, I will give you that endorsement. But he's like people were asking what it would take, and he was like, if Dallas wants Vince Dunn for Jason Robertson in a somewhat like one-on deal, you have to do that.
I would
I'm like,
absolutely do
yes,
that. I would do that without even thinking.
right? Like that's what it would be. Like you're gonna have to move something. Um, so and like you've got the forward prospect depth to move off of one or two of them or whatever and feel fine.
Hmm.
I can name a few right now that I'd be perfectly fine moving. I think the one guy I wouldn't is Berkeley. Like there are scenarios where you go after other like with all of the stuff that's happening in Boston. If David Pastrnak becomes available, you can have Berkeley and more, right?
Yeah, I agree.
It's just part of like I've said this before, but also I then say like, hey, they haven't done it, which they're not exclusive, but it's funny because I've said, hey, superstars don't really become available unless they want out.
Hmm.
Eichel is an example. Rand didn't want out, but
He wanted
that
out of
was
Carolina.
well, yeah, there you go. Okay, thank you. That supports myself. Unless they want out and they get a trade, they rarely hit free agency,
Hmm.
right? Or you draft them and develop them that way. The Kraken seemingly are trying to do that last one. Um, but yeah, they don't become available. So Robertson available, go after it.
Yep.
Like do what you can. Pasternak, if he becomes available, that was more of an if. Then do it, right?
Hmm.
Um, because I've complained on this show. I think you even did it last week, right? But I've complained on this show. You know how many stars have become available and moved? that they haven't really been in on. One I remember is Jacob Chikrin when he was getting
Hmm.
traded. I was like, hey, you could use some help D. No,
Nope.
like right. You go back and look at over the course of the time that the Kraken have been a legitimate franchise. I'm not saying like when Seattle got given a team in like 2019 or whatever. I'm not saying
Hmm.
that because obviously that doesn't matter. But like you look from when they could start making those deals to now, they've missed out on a lot of players. And
Oh yeah.
whether it be they didn't need a certain full like position or whatever, that's fine. But even then, there's still a lot that they've missed out on, right?
Hmm.
So I'm just saying, like, it would be painful, I'm sure, but to acquire that level of talent would be huge, and that's the first step in the right direction. Um, you know, so I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? Whether it just be acquiring a star or any thoughts on who Seattle might go after if they become available? Because I know you again, Jayd. I will say this: Jayd is not just Kraken wise. I mean, the amount of stuff I see, we're like, why is she tweeting this? And I'm like, oh, it's her stuff for a different thing. Because I'm like,
Yep.
why are you talking about this team? What's going on?
Um, I have nothing super specific. I have been so locked into just draft stuff the past week or so, with all the stuff for ITR that I'm doing, and then what I put out for CSS with everything, and then I'm gonna work on more profiles. But yeah, my brain has been not quite on free agency yet, but it's starting to shift that direction slowly as I'm starting to wrap up all my draft stuff. So I'm sure that the next time we talk, I will have more opinions on it. But also, it's so hard right now to tell because, like I was saying, there's so many just rumors and people just kind of like you just did with Pasternak, like what if he becomes available? That's what a lot of people are doing, but then it's being taken at face value with like, oh my God, he is available. Now, this is who reported it. So I think that in the next probably week or so, there'll be some more solid names that are going to be out there as available, um, which will be interesting to end up seeing. But yeah, I got nothing right now.
Yeah, and that could change as well, with we get to the like restricted timeline, right? Maybe
Hmm.
teams aren't able to come up with the contract for their guys. You brought up, thank you for doing that, by the way, the thing about how Seattle might be offer sheeting,
Yep.
maybe then we get an idea of who they might go after, right?
Which,
Uh,
yeah, I think that with the rising cap and now that, the offer sheet um return, my mind is not working. The compensation, offer sheet compensation, once that came out, that's really when I was like, oh, okay, yeah, teams have so much cap space this season or this off season, and if that's all that it's going to take to send back in compensation, like I have a feeling that there's going to be quite a few more offer sheets than we've seen in past years.
and that will be fascinating.
Yeah, and I
And
know that St. Louis kind of opened that door last year with the
yeah,
Broberg and Holloway offer sheets, and so I really think that teams are going to start to go that direction, especially with there's so many restricted free agents this year that haven't been re-signed yet. So,
yeah, I mean, as we roll along, and I'm sure you do, but while I'm saying this, if you're able to get like next league dates, like for free agency and stuff, because obviously we have to wait for the cup final to finish, but I was like, you usually know the
um,
league stuff better than I do.
so the last day for the Cup final is the 23rd, I think. Hold on, I'm pulling up the calendar right now. Yeah, the 23rd is the last day for the Cup final. Um, and then free agency starts at noon on July 1st, noon Eastern time, so 9 a.m. Pacific time on July 1st, and that's un unrestricted and restricted.
So you said 9 o'clock?
Yeah.
That's a Tuesday. Okay, that's fine.
Yep. And
I
then the
I just
draft
know
is
I'll have to be sat down and prepared.
yep. And then the draft is I think the 28th and 29th. That sounds right in my head. Or 27th and 28th.
27th, 28th. Yep, of
Okay.
June.
Yep. And then the deadline for first club elected salary arbitration notifications is either the later of June 15th or 48 hours after the conclusion of the Stanley Cup final. And that's the same as buyouts
Mm.
for any teams doing
Oh yeah.
buyouts.
Well, I guess we can go. Did we go over the Grubauer thing?
No, did we last week or last time?
I think it came out after. Did it?
I don't know.
Um,
No, I think we did last week because I remember saying that I didn't find Saravalli to be the most trustworthy
Franck.
source. Yep.
Yes.
And then we talked about
Okay.
getting punked.
Thank you. Okay, because I was just like, I don't remember.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so that's the upcoming timeline. And then there's oh my God.
Huh?
Rangers and Ducks are in advanced discussions on a deal that send Chris Kreider to Orange County. Stop
What
taking the
the
guys that I
fuck?
want. No deal at
Why?
this moment, but there is interest and a framework. Both teams had other irons in the fire today. We'll see on Wednesday. Welcome to the off season.
What the fuck? Oh, great. Now I'm getting texted about that. All right, piss off. Who said that? Elliot?
Uh, Frank.
Franck.
Actual Frank,
Interesting.
not Frank.
Franck. Interesting. Huh. Well,
Yeah.
that's another thing. I mean, you could look at in terms of pressure. Anaheim doesn't seem to be fucking around.
No,
And,
they also want to win soon.
like
Um,
they're goofy Anaheim, but they're at least trying.
yeah. Um,
So
but yeah, that's also a good time to say that the off season is about to be in full swing and it's going to be probably trade after trade after trade. And I have a feeling that this year's draft is going to be pandemonium because I know a lot of teams are wanting to move up in the draft. And so that's all I have for general league information today.
who needs 32 thoughts or the sheet when we can just have Jayd? We'll have to come up with a catchy nickname.
I know.
Um,
I'll have to start thinking of one. Hmm.
See, this is what happens when shit happens. Is when I need to talk to the people I know about what the fuck's going on. Stupid. Thanks, Frank. Break news another time, not when we're recording, you nerd. Um, yeah, we'll work on that. You can work on that. It's you're gonna be your show. But yeah, so we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, too, that Anaheim thing, fans are gonna be like, "Hey, why aren't we doing a thing?" Right? Like,
Hmm.
why aren't we trading going after people?
Why aren't we breaking a trade at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday?
Actually, it's a 7:14.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's fair. That's what we got for this week. Not this week. We're not doing these weekly anymore, obviously, because we had the emergency one. I mean, we'll still do them weekly. Obviously, this is the weekly installment, but obviously we'll have emergency ones as well. So,
Hmm.
yeah, maybe Frank has something else up his ass and he wants to bring something else Seattle related. The Jason
Wrong,
Robertson
please.
deal. Give it, give it.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, until we see you next time, hopefully we've got our friend Miri Cal, but she's busy doing some things. We'll see. I mean, it's a busy time of the year. Obviously, yeah, Jade mentioned free agency will come up at the end of the month. We've got the draft. There's things there. Who knows how many? Seattle has 7 picks, what, in this draft currently, and that could
Hmm.
change. That number could change. So, uh, we'll see. So, I will say my one little tidbit that's not even that important is that you'll notice at that press conference it was Bottrill and oh, Lambert. See, I already forgot his name. Um, I did notice that Jamie Alexiak was around the building, so I wonder what that was about. I wonder if you just decided to hang out in Seattle this offseason. I don't know.
He did when he was recording the ad for the burger. the Big Rig burger that
Mm.
Kraken Iceplex put out for National Burger Day. I was having lunch at the other end of the bar and not intentionally eavesdropping, but there was like me, him, and the waiters and one other person in there. I could hear everything that was being said across all the tables. And he said that he was staying around Seattle to train during the off season, that he wasn't
Oh,
really
okay.
taking any vacations or anything. So,
So that explains that.
yep.
So I was just like, why are you here? I was like, I mean, it would be a nice show of support if you want to go in that direction to be there for the new head coach. But I was like, well, he wasn't even there because again, they did it in the players' lounge,
Hmm.
which is I'm gonna do this for the people who don't know. There's the entrance doors that you can see if you come to practice, right? There's their like stick like holders on the sides, and then there's the Kraken logo. I'm sure some of you've seen it. And there's this long hallway, and like along the like behind the logo is the locker room,
Hmm.
right? And then further down, if you go to the right hand, if you're looking at the logo and you go to the right hand side, go further past the little bookshelf where they had the story. If you remember, they did that feature about the bookshelf. Um, the players' lounge is down there. Um, so uh that was really nice. Oh yeah, I was walking down the hallway and Jamie was going into the locker room, and I was like, she's probably going to use a shower or something because that they've got the showers in there. But I was just like, what is happening? Why are you here? So
Yep.
that explains that. So all right, yeah. Until we see you next week, again, we might see earlier or something happens. Who knows? Call Frank. Call Elliot and his stupid abbreviations. Thankfully, it's one team now, and it's I think
I
since the
know.
Stanley Cup final, he's like serious up. But I
Hmm.
remember he stopped for a while. He's like, I'm gonna drop the bit for the moment. Um,
I was so happy when it started again. I look forward to the bizarre abbreviations every week, every game.
and then he came back, yeah, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, what is this? They're weird again. So yeah, until we see you then, take care of yourselves, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, where are you going to watch all those Kraken away games?
Cracking away games, making a push. I was thinking of coming here just because Rough and Tumble is the home of circling Seattle sports, only if that's okay with you.
I mean, I love that idea. Hope to see you here.